Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my page 112 tag for September 2023. The page 112 tag was brought to BookTube by Sean the Book Maniac. It's based off of a French literary prize wherein they comprised the long list of said prize of novels solely by reading page 112 of the books in contention. And so for most novel-length books, page 112 is supposed to be somewhere in the middle of the novel, shortly after the polished pages that editors look for. So you're supposed to be getting to the raw, real writing. And also, reading without the context of the rest of the story means you can solely judge the book based on the quality of the writing on that page. So I've been using this tag since COVID to slowly whittle down my physical TBR shelves while also, of course, building them back up again. I take this handy dandy Books and Cats mug. It's filled with pieces of paper that are comprised of titles of books I've acquired 2022 or earlier. I pick out 3 at random each month, and then I share page 112 on camera with you and discuss their merits, and finally I pick one of those books to join my month's TBR. So it's a fun little sort of TBR game I like to play, and without further ado, let's get to it, starting with book number 1. Alright, so we're at the very beginning now. I like to have a little bit of diversity in this, although, depending on what books I actually have on my shelf, but right now, of course, it's a clean slate, so we'll see what this one is. Okay. We Just Want to Live Here by Amal Rifai and Odelia Einbinder. I might not have said that right, but this is an interesting way to begin. This is a YA book that's actually been on my shelves for a very long time. I think my mother gave this book to me in time immemorial, and I decided I really should put it in this mug to, encourage myself to actually read it. It's a book that's actually about Israelis and Palestinians, and so, yeah. Alright, so for book number 2, I feel like we'll get something at least a little different, because most of the books on here, at least, I've gotten myself much more recently, so that'll be something. So here we go. Alright, Provenance by Ann Leckie. I was just talking about this book recently in my mock read science fiction video, because Ann Leckie came out with a science fiction book this year that I thought I might try to read, and I was mentioning I have Provenance on my list, on my physical TBR, so yeah, this could be exciting to read those 2 books in tandem. So. Alright, and finally, book number 3, and yeah, this is exciting. I already have a YA. I don't have a lot of YA contemporary on my list, and I have science fiction. I don't have a lot of science fiction on my TBR, so it'll probably be something in a different genre for book 3, so that's cool. So here we go. Okay. The Pool of the Stars by Emma Donoghue. So yeah, this I think is pretty different. This is historical fiction that is taking place around the 1918 flu. And I decided to pick this up when I saw it a couple of years ago, I think, at the Gaithersburg Book Festival. The library, sells some used books there, and I saw it on one of the tables, and I thought, why not? The only sad thing, I suppose, about this, although I'm excited to read all these books, is I haven't read any of them before on the tag, so I'll have a fair bit of post-production to do, but all well. Anyway, you have seen me pick out all of these books now, so I actually do read them to myself first and then comprise my thoughts and get back to you, so stay tuned. Okay, I'm back, starting with book number 1, We Just Want to Live Here by Amal Rafai and Odelia Einbinder. And I actually, my mom left me a little post-it note where she explained why she got this book for me, and I had it on the front, but I decided to move it to the side, inside cover. But anyway, I just wanted to have that Bagrut certificate with some grade on it. I and most of my friends didn't care about the marks. Of course, there were some really ambitious students, and there were people who cried because they didn't get excellent marks. But in general, it is less formal in our schools. You don't have school uniforms as in Arab schools. I talked with my friends from the Komuna and Kfar Saba about our schools. We all agreed that it was not very formal in Israeli schools. Basically, they gave you a choice. If you want to learn, you learn. If not, okay, then you can go home. That's how it goes. I like what Mark Twain said about school. I never let school interfere with my education. I think education should not be to stand up in school or listen to everything the teacher says and write it down as if those were holy words. At my school, it was actually very interesting sometimes. We had lively political discussions and occasional fights. They were pretty liberal. You could criticize, say what you wanted, argue with your teachers. At the end of the year, and especially for us 12th graders who were about to leave school after the Bagrut exams anyway, everything was a bit more loose. Some of the students actually came to school, sat on the stairs to the entrance, and smoked cigarettes. That meant nothing. We were good kids. We just wanted to show, ha, we have finished all our tests, and we are leaving school for the summer vacation, or really forever, and now we will smoke in your faces. The teachers didn't care. They knew that we were all good kids, and they knew we were not under their authority anymore, and that we just wanted to let loose and probably show off a bit. We wanted that one moment of freedom and a little rebellion, too. Okay, so I kind of feel like it's pretty apparent in a way that this was written by a teenager. The writing is rather simplistic. I mean, granted, I'm also dealing, I believe, with a translation, although I'm not. I think this correspondent who, Silke Temple, who maybe translated, at least I assume that these two girls aren't writing in English, but this one is obviously from the Israeli girl, Odelia Einbinder, talking about her school experience. And it's certainly arresting stuff, as in how, I don't know, brazen it is. It feels so stereotypically Sabra, like, oh, I'm just going to do what I want and I don't care. It comes off a little bit like being an asshole or something, although at least I like the line, although maybe she's just trying to justify things about how they're allowed to argue and debate, which feels very Jewish. I feel like in the Jewish state we should have Jewish styles of learning, perhaps. That's a nice feeling. If any of these kids actually deign to learn rather than just smoke cigarettes. But yeah, I mean, I guess she's at least coming off as honest, so that's kind of nice. And, it's kind of intriguing stuff. Of course, I actually know a lot more about this book than just on that page. I know there's two writers of the same age, so we're hearing from the Israeli girl who actually references, writing to the Palestinian girl, because she says our schools aren't like Arab schools. And I actually get this book confused sometimes, I think, with a much older book about a Palestinian and Israeli who was a Holocaust survivor meeting up. They meet up at the home of the Palestinian, which unknowingly the Israeli was assigned and moved into. And the two of them, I think, it's a much older book, and they talked about their trauma and displacement and that sort of thing. But this one, I think these students were basically around my age when they were in high school, and met on an exchange program in Switzerland, which is one of those reminders, I think, of how distant Israeli and Palestinian communities are from each other actually at home. And then this correspondent encouraged them to write letters to one another and made this book out of it. But even this is now pretty old, as much as I wouldn't like to think so, since I think I'm about their age. But this, I believe, they met at least in 2000. It's obviously very YA, very written by young writers, as well as marketed to them. But it's compelling stuff. Book number 2 is Provenance by Anne Leckie. Fucking ascended saints. We'll have to get there before they do. Where are the vestiges exactly? I'm not entirely sure, said Girral. I never intended to retrieve them, so I didn't pay much attention. Danach stared at Em and then said, I should just turn you in. In Gray, having used the last minute or so to muster up more of a frown, dropped her towel and crossed her arms. I should turn you both in. Do you think that permit will be approved once everyone knows where those vestiges are? Danach and Girral both turned to stare at her. We had a deal, she said to Girral. When we made that deal, Girral said very patiently, we didn't know about people digging up the ruined glass, did we? You won't turn us in, said Danach dismissively. And to Girral, she'll get over it. And you'd better remember where you put those vestiges. He blinked and looked off into the distance, brought his focus back to Gray and Girral. In the meantime, I have to get ready for a party. Tokris Ithesta's naming is tonight. What? Gray was startled out of her posed anger. Did Okris finally make a choice? Okris was in Gray's age, had been a quiet child, ill at ease in large groups. Gray had liked them, but once she claimed her own adult name, she'd seen very little of Okris. He had almost forgotten them. Danach gave a short laugh. I thought she never would. Okay, so I feel like, I have these, notions about reading from science fiction and fantasy versus literary fiction where, it's so plot-driven that it's kind of hard to, read, more difficult to read things out of context here. Although, maybe that's just an excuse. What I do know is that we're starting in the middle of an argument, so that's always a little off-putting when you don't know who the people are. They're arguing about, I think, the location of these vestiges. I did read a little bit of the flap, but I don't know a lot of details about it. And there is just inborn drama about, a deal between two of them that's apparently being broken. There's threats of some sort of punitive action. And finally, we completely changed topic to like a birthday party or a naming party, which, I don't know, felt very abrupt to me. Reading this after the last book, there's something that feels very juvenile by the way how Lecky is writing this. I don't know. That's just how I took the, the chatter and sort of the simplistic movements, which, I don't know, I worry sometimes when I'm writing the way I have my characters sort of standing. It's a little too simplistic too, so I don't know, there's just something that feels a little bit catty about this, or petty, I don't know, and I can't say that for sure. But it is reminding me, I feel like a lot of people who say Provenance isn't as beloved as the Ancillary Justice trilogy that she wrote before, even though they all take place in the same world. So I kind of feel like I want to put this down. I feel kind of bad about that because this is SciFi September and, this is an actual space opera. I don't actually have a lot of these on my physical shelves, but I actually am intending to read her latest book in this universe, so maybe it's for the better, to just, judge that one on its own merits and not to get it tangled up in this book, and I've never read Ancillary Justice, and then I might, it might be easier to pick this up, obviously, later when I have more context. So certainly, put it back in contention for later times. And finally, I have Book 3, The Pool of the Stars by Emma Donoghue. The old man straightened up painfully and said, I'll let you rest. Coming over to the desk, he asked, Have you a new junior, Nurse Power? Just a skivvy, said Bridie before I could answer. A replacement like yourself. The priest looked back at me and jerked his head at her. I see she's a quick one. I said, Don't I know it, Father? He sneezed and wiped his great reddened nose. Excuse me, ladies. I asked, Have you a cold brewing? I'm just getting over a little dose of this flu. If I may, Father. I put the back of my hand to his forehead, which was warmish. Shouldn't you be in bed, then, to be on the safe side? I'd rather walk it off, said Father Xavier. I might as well be useful on the fever wards. But the strain concerning your... He raised his tufted eyebrows. Considering my age, young lady, how much would it matter in the greater scheme of things if I were taken this very night? Bridie let out a snort. Father Xavier winked at her. I'll be grand. I hear the old are getting through this better than the young. I qualified that, well, as a general rule. The priest said briskly, His ways are mysterious. Delia Garrett's eyes were open now, her gaze following the old man out the door. She looked hollowed out. I couldn't bear to see her this way. Hot whiskey, Mrs. Garrett? As soon as I handed her the cup, she drained it, then lay back down on her pillows and closed her eyes. Okay, so this one also opens in the middle of a conversation, and in a way, it's a little, in the beginning, even more, confusing to me than the one in the sci-fi book. So, that one actually was more straightforward. I think I was confused about who the new person was the father was meeting. Was it Bridie or the narrator? And at first I figured that the narrator was the new person because he was looking at Bridie, but now I'm thinking it was Bridie sort of like, jumping into the conversation to introduce herself. So it's just a little confusing without context. But after we get past that hiccup, the narrative moves really quickly. Like, I feel like, there's very limited, external posturing about, like, setting the scene about, what the characters are reacting to physically or what the physical environs are. But it's okay because I feel like the dialogue is just so rigorous and riveting. Like, I'm just right there in the scene. Maybe it's just my U.S. thoughts sometimes, like, because this dialogue feels very British to me, so I almost feel like, oh, it's like I'm in a different culture, and that's kind of cool on its own. Although I'm very concerned for this elderly father, I suppose, who seems to be deciding to be on the fever wards with a fever. Actually, I feel like, it's not good for him. I'm not sure it's that good for the patients either. Yeah, I think one of the only other things I dislike about this is that there's no quotation marks. I just, that's such a pet peeve of mine that apparently Emma Donoghue does as well. I've never read any of her other works, so I guess I'll have to keep it in mind if I read anything else from hers. I do find this very intriguing. So now to get on to my selection process, I do think I will put this one down. This will be the first one that I take out of contention, Provenance, and I'll be reading another Ann Leckie book this month instead. So then I have the two of these books, The Pool of the Stars and We Just Want to Live Here, which feel very different. This is adult historical fiction, and this is YA. I still think we'd call this contemporary fiction, even if it took place in 2000. I still think it's relatively contemporary. Just go with me here. About my own teen years being reflected. And I do kind of feel like I want to go with this one. Because, it's just something more unique for me, that I don't read a lot of YA contemporary, and I felt like this was an intriguing sort of bold voice, and frankly, maybe another one of the reasons is with my page 112 book, I'll have 10 books on the TBR, so of course it'll be easier to slip this one in. And it's been on my shelves forever. It's one of those books I kind of forgot about for years and years, so I do really want to get to it, whereas this one I picked up from the Gaithersburg Book Festival, just a couple years ago at most. And just to put it out there, I picked up this book from like a outdoor book sale in Georgetown by a bookstore called Carpe Librum, which does some charity work, so I'll link to them down below. But yeah, to get back to this, I think I'm going to go with it. I'm going to go with putting this book on my TBR, and hopefully it'll be invigorating reading for me. Also, while I'm in the state of mind of the high holidays, to talk about these very Jewish-inspired issues as well. And so, yeah, that about covers it for me now. I will leave the Goodreads pages for all three of these books listed down below if you'd like more information. I am kind of excited about how different these three books were. That's not my usual all the time. When it comes to my TBR shelves, I usually have a lot of literary and historical fiction that I find and I pick up, and I listen to more science fiction and fantasy on audio, and I just don't have a lot of YA contemporary much at all anymore, so it is exciting to get back into that headspace and move around in it. And I'm just maybe I'll be nostalgic, or maybe I'll be embarrassed, considering the book I chose is about teenagers my own age. So yeah, there we have it. And the final part of my outro I like to do in this video is to highlight a readathon or a TBR game, because I feel like this is my monthly TBR game and I want to feel like I'm part of the community and shout someone else out. And speaking of Sci-Fi September, I decided to choose a game that's fantastical in tone. It's called Quest for the Missing Souls by Reading with Merb, and it's basically an original board game she made up where she has these two characters. One of them is like a trapped princess or just character in general, and the second is another female character who she moves along the board to rescue that character, and as she moves to different squares, she has to pick up different prompts, and she also has this ethereal sort of fantastical music playing behind her as she plays, so that's kind of cool too. So anyway, I'll link to that down below. And now that I have, solidified the end of my September TBR, I think it is, my next video should be an AM reading update, where I actually start reading and talking about my thoughts about the books on my TBR this month, so stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, thanks so much for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time.